The quantum sensors aboard the USS Hyperion lit up like a Christmas tree as the massive research vessel dropped out of hyperspace. Communications Officer Rena Voss leaned forward at her station, dark eyes fixed on the readings that scrolled across her holographic display. After 6 months of deep space exploration, they had finally found something extraordinary. "Captain Rhodes," Rena called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm picking up an unusual signal. It appears to be a distress beacon, but the frequency patterns are like nothing in our database." Captain Helena Rhodes rose from her command chair, her silver-streaked hair catching the light of the bridge's ambient illumination. "Source: approximately 300,000 kilometers off our port bow," Rena replied, her fingers dancing across the controls. "The signal is weak, but consistent. Whatever's out there, it's using the last of its power to call for help." The bridge crew held their breath as the main viewscreen activated, revealing a distant shape silhouetted against the stars. As the Hyperion sensors focused, the image sharpened to show a vessel unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Its hull seemed to ripple like liquid metal, organic curves blending seamlessly with crystalline structures that pulsed with a faint, purple light. "Life signs?" Rhodes asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dar." Jace Morrison spoke up from his medical station. "Faint, but present. The ship's environmental systems are failing. Whoever's aboard, they don't have much time left." Rhodes squared her shoulders, years of command experience evident in her posture. "Senior staff, meeting room. Now." She turned to the helm. "Lieutenant Park, maintain distance but keep us within transporter range." In the meeting room, tension crackled like static electricity. Security Chief Darius Cole, a former Mars colonial defender with burn scars across his left cheek, voiced what everyone was thinking. "This could be first contact, Captain. Or it could be a trap." "Both possibilities have crossed my mind," Rhodes replied, studying the sensor data displayed on the room's central table. "But I'm not willing to let someone die because we were too cautious to help." Rena felt her palms grow sweaty as all eyes turned to her. As the ship's xenolinguist and communications specialist, this would be her moment to shine, or fail spectacularly. "The beacon's language structure suggests a highly advanced civilization," she explained, pulling up her analysis. "There are mathematical constants woven into the signal that can't be accidental. They're trying to make themselves understood." Dr. Morrison tapped his medical tricorder thoughtfully. "The atmospheric readings from their ship matched Type 2 oxygen requirements. Similar enough to our own that we could potentially bring survivors aboard without major environmental modifications." "If we do this," Cole interjected, "we need protocols in place. Quarantine procedures, security measures." A sudden alarm cut through the discussion. Lieutenant Park's voice came over the comm. "Captain, the alien vessel's power core is destabilizing. They have maybe 20 minutes before critical failure." Rhodes stood, her decision made. "We didn't come all this way to watch them die. Mr. Cole, prepare a security team. Dr. Morrison, get quarantine bay ready. Officer Voss, you're with me. We're making history today, one way or another." As Rena hurried to gather her translation equipment, her hands trembled with equal parts excitement and fear. Her entire career had led to this moment, but no amount of training could fully prepare someone for humanity's first encounter with an alien civilization. The rescue team assembled in the transporter room, environmental suits sealed and weapons set to stun, just in case. Rena triple-checked her universal translator's modifications, praying the mathematical patterns she'd discovered in the beacon would help bridge the communication gap. "Remember," Rhodes addressed the team, her voice firm but encouraging, "whatever we find over there, we represent not just the Hyperion, but all of humanity. Let's make first contact one for the history books, for the right reasons." The transporter beam enveloped them in its familiar blue light, and Rena's last thought before materializing on the alien vessel was a quote from her academy days: the greatest discoveries in history often begin with a simple act of compassion. What they found aboard would change humanity's understanding of the universe forever. The quarantine bay of the Hyperion hummed with activity as Dr. Jace Morrison studied the readings before him with growing concern. Through the observation window, he watched as the rescued Xylaxians moved with fluid grace despite their weakened condition. Their iridescent skin shifted colors like oil on water, a biological response to emotional states that made their distress painfully clear. Their cellular degradation is accelerating, he muttered, running another scan. Whatever this pathogen is, it's unlike anything in our medical database. Rena Voss stood beside him, her universal translator working overtime to process the complex harmonics of Xylaxian speech. The aliens communicated through both vocal sounds and subtle color changes, making traditional translation methods nearly useless. She'd been working around the clock to bridge the gap. Tara says their best scientists couldn't find a cure, Rena translated as one of the Xylaxians pressed a six-fingered hand against the quarantine field. Their entire research facility was destroyed in an attack. They're the only survivors. The lead Xylaxian, whom they'd come to know as first speaker Tara, approached the barrier. Her skin rippled with bands of deep blue, a color Rena had learned indicated both grief and hope. The universal translator processed her melodic speech. Our pursuers believed destruction was better than risking the pathogen's spread. We fled not just for ourselves, but for the knowledge we carried. Dr. Morrison leaned forward, his tired eyes suddenly alert. Knowledge? What kind of knowledge? Before Tara could answer, alarms blared throughout the medical bay. Security Chief Cole's voice crackled over the comm, "Doctor, we've got a problem. 2 crew members just collapsed on deck 4. Symptoms match what we're seeing in our guests." Morrison's blood ran cold. The quarantine procedures should have been perfect, unless... How long ago did they start showing symptoms? About 10 minutes ago. They were both part of the rescue team. Captain Rhodes strode into the medical bay, her face grim. "Doctor, give me something. Earth Command is demanding answers, and half the crew is ready to mutiny out of fear." Morrison pulled up the latest test results, his fingers flying over the holographic display. "The pathogen's using our own immune system against us. It's not just attacking cells, it's reprogramming them. But here's the strange part, the Xylaxian symptoms are progressing much slower than ours. Something in their biology is fighting back." Tara's skin flashed with patterns of urgent green and gold. "This is why we sought help," she said through the translator. "Our bodies adapted, but not quickly enough. We discovered a way to synthesize the resistance, but needed technology we didn't have. Technology we believed your species might possess." Rhodes exchanged looks with Morrison. "Can we help them?" "Maybe," Morrison said, studying the complex molecular structures on his screen. "But we'd need to merge our medical technology with their biological knowledge. It's never been done before." "Because our species have never met before," Rena interjected, her eyes bright with realization. "What if that's exactly what we need? 2 different approaches, 2 different immune responses." Morrison nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "If we could combine their natural resistance with our synthetic immune boosters." He turned to Rhodes. "Captain, I need unrestricted access to the medical database and permission to modify our biotech synthesizers. What I'm proposing breaks about a dozen interstellar medical protocols." Rhodes watched through the quarantine field as another crew member was brought in, already showing symptoms. Her jaw tightened. "Do what you have to do, Doctor. I'll deal with the bureaucrats later." What followed was a desperate race against time. Morrison worked side by side with the Xylaxian scientists, trading knowledge across the quarantine barrier through diagrams and simulations. Rena barely left her post, refining the translator to handle increasingly complex medical terminology. Hours stretched into days. More crew members fell ill. The Hyperion's corridors grew quiet as healthy personnel isolated themselves in sealed sections. Through it all, Morrison and the Xylaxians worked, testing combination after combination of human and alien medical techniques. They were running out of time. The infected crew members were deteriorating faster than the Xylaxians, their human biology offering less natural resistance. Morrison hadn't slept in 48 hours, surviving on stimulants and determination. "Look at this," he called out suddenly, pointing to a simulation result. "Their biological compounds are accepting the synthetic matrix. If we can stabilize the reaction." Tara's skin rippled with excitement, patterns of bright silver cascading across her form. "Yes. The molecular structure matches our theoretical models. This could work." But before they could celebrate, a new alarm sounded. "Doctor," a nurse called out, "Lieutenant Park's organs are shutting down. We're losing him." Morrison looked at the promising test results, then at his dying crewmate. The treatment was untested, a hybrid of two completely different medical philosophies. Using it could save lives, or end them more quickly. The weight of command settled on Rhodes's shoulders as she met Morrison's questioning gaze. In her hand, she held orders from Earth Command strictly forbidding the use of untested alien medical procedures on human subjects. With lives hanging in the balance, they faced an impossible choice: follow regulations and watch their people die, or risk everything on an unprecedented collaboration between species. Security Chief Darius Cole moved silently through the dimmed corridors of Deck 7, his hand resting on his pulse pistol. The Hyperion's usual hum of activity had been replaced by an eerie quiet, broken only by the soft whirring of quarantine filters. Most of the crew was either sick, treating the sick, or confined to sealed sections. But someone had been moving between those sealed sections. Someone who shouldn't have been. "Another breach in environmental controls," reported Naira, the Xylaxian security specialist who moved beside him. Her skin rippled with patterns of deep purple, their equivalent of battle readiness. After Morrison's hybrid cure had started working, some of the healthier Xylaxians had volunteered to help maintain ship operations. Naira's combat experience and keen observational skills had made her an invaluable ally. "Third one this week," Cole muttered, checking his scanner. "Right after we finally got the outbreak under control. This isn't coincidence." The hybrid treatment had worked better than anyone dared hope. Lieutenant Park and the other critical patients had stabilized within hours of receiving it. But just as the crisis seemed to be ending, strange malfunctions began plaguing the ship. Critical systems would fail, only to restore themselves before any permanent damage was done. Security protocols would mysteriously reset, leaving sections temporarily vulnerable. "Your ship's systems are impressive," Naira observed, her translator rendering her harmonics into clear speech. "These failures cannot be accidental. The pattern suggests intimate knowledge of both human and Xylaxian technology." Cole stopped at an intersection, his scarred face reflected in a darkened display panel. "You think one of your people? Or one of yours," Naira countered. "The truth often lies in uncomfortable places." A shadow of movement caught Cole's attention. He gestured silently, and they both pressed against the wall. Footsteps approached, too light for an environmental suit, which meant someone had overridden the quarantine seals. The figure that rounded the corner wore a crew uniform, but moved with an unnatural fluidity. Before Cole could react, Naira's skin flashed a warning pattern. The figure spun with inhuman speed, throwing something that glinted in the emergency lighting. Cole felt Naira's powerful grip yank him sideways as a dart whistled past his ear. His pulse pistol was up and firing in an instant, but the attacker was already moving, displaying agility that no human should possess. "Biomechanical augments," Naira called out, her own weapon humming to life. "Illegal in both our societies. Explains the system access." The attacker fled down the corridor, leaving behind a small device attached to the wall. Numbers on its display began counting down. "Explosive!" Cole shouted, but Naira was already moving. Her skin shifted to a metallic sheen as she grabbed the device and threw it into an emergency disposal chute. The explosion was muffled but still rocked the deck. "Hull breach contained," the ship's computer announced. "Emergency force fields engaged. Security team to Deck 7, Cole barked into his comm. "Full lockdown. And someone get me Captain Rhodes." In the command center 30 minutes later, Rhodes stared at the surveillance footage. "Freeze image," she ordered. The computer enhanced the attacker's face, revealing features that seemed to shift between human and Xylaxian characteristics. "A hybrid," first speaker Tara breathed, her skin paling to ash gray. "Like the ones who destroyed our research facility." Dr. Morrison leaned forward, fascinated despite the gravity of the situation. "That's impossible. The genetic gap between our species is too wide. Unless someone found a way to bridge it," Rena suggested, her translator picking up complex emotional harmonics from the Xylaxians. "Using the same pathogen that's been killing everyone." Tara's skin darkened with what Rena had learned to recognize as shame. "We weren't entirely truthful before. The pathogen wasn't natural. It was engineered, not by us, but by a splinter group. They believed forced evolution through genetic manipulation would create a superior species. When we discovered their experiments, they released the pathogen and destroyed our facility to cover their tracks. And now they've followed you here," Rhodes concluded. "Not to silence you, but to steal our cure. A working hybrid treatment would be the key to their whole project." Cole's expression hardened. "We're not just dealing with a saboteur. We're caught in the middle of a biological arms race. One that could tear both our societies apart," Naira added, her skin rippling with urgent patterns. "The extremists believe pure genetic advancement justifies any cost. If they obtain a working hybrid treatment, they'll use it to create an army," Rhodes finished. "One that combines the best attributes of both species. And they'll eliminate anyone they consider genetically inferior." The implications hung heavy in the recycled air. Two civilizations, newly introduced to each other, faced a threat that could destroy them both. But as Rhodes looked around the room at human and Xylaxian working together, she saw something the extremists had missed. "They think forcing our species together through genetic manipulation will create something superior," she said. "But look at what we've already accomplished by simply choosing to cooperate. We're stronger together not because someone forced us to be, but because we chose to trust each other." Alarms blared before anyone could respond. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace, Lieutenant Park announced from his station. "Reading both human and Xylaxian energy signatures. They're charging weapons." The extremists had arrived in force. And the Hyperion, caught between two worlds, would have to find a way to protect them both. Captain Rhodes stood on the bridge of the Hyperion, watching as hostile ships surrounded them in a deadly geometric pattern. The tactical display showed 5 vessels, 3 of obvious Xylaxian design and 2 that bore a disturbing resemblance to Earth's deep space frigates. "They're hailing us," Rena announced, her fingers dancing across her console. "Multiple frequencies, both human and Xylaxian protocols." On screen, Rhodes ordered, straightening her uniform. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made several bridge crew members gasp. The being addressing them appeared neither fully human nor Xylaxian, but a disturbing merger of both. Its skin shifted colors like a Xylaxian's, but followed human musculature. Its eyes were human in shape but possessed the metallic sheen of Xylaxian optics. "I am Directive Commander Saren," the hybrid announced, its voice carrying both human speech and Xylaxian harmonics. "You have something that belongs to us." "The only things on this ship belong to its crew," Rhodes replied firmly. "And to our guests, who sought asylum from your attacks." Saren's skin rippled with what might have been amusement. "Asylum? They're criminals who stole vital research. Research that could elevate both our species beyond their limitations." The hybrid commander leaned forward. Surely you've seen the potential. You're Dar. Morrison's hybrid cure proves what we've theorized: our species can be combined, improved, perfected. Dr. Morrison stepped forward, his face tight with anger. We created that cure to save lives, not to play God with evolution. A small vision from a small mind, Saren dismissed. We're offering transcendence. Imagine the strength and adaptive capabilities of the Xylaxians combined with human innovation and drive. We could become gods. First speaker Tara's skin flashed with patterns of revulsion. You've become monsters, twisting the sacred patterns of life itself. You have 1 hour to surrender your research data and the Xylaxian fugitives, Saren continued as if Tara hadn't spoken. After that, we'll take them by force. And trust me, our hybrid ships pack quite a punch. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Options? Rhodes asked, turning to her crew. Their ships have us outgunned, Cole reported grimly. And their hybrid technology gives them advantages we can't predict. The Hyperion's engines are still strained from our rescue operation, Lieutenant Park added from the helm. We couldn't outrun them even if we tried. Naira, who had been studying the tactical display, spoke up. Their formation has one weakness. They're using a standard Xylaxian attack pattern, but modified to account for human tactical doctrine. It makes them predictable, if you know both protocols. Rhodes turned to the Xylaxian security specialist. Can we exploit that? Perhaps. But it would require perfect coordination between human and Xylaxian crew members. One mistake and we'd be space dust, Cole finished. But it's better than surrender. Dr. Morrison cleared his throat. There's another option. The hybrid cure we created, we could modify it. Make it look like what they want, but program it to break down their genetic modifications instead. Fight fire with fire. You're talking about biological warfare, Rhodes said quietly. I'm talking about stopping monsters who'd enslave both our species to their twisted vision, Morrison countered. They're using our own technology against us. Why not return the favor? Rhodes looked around the bridge at her human crew and their Xylaxian allies. In the short time they'd worked together, they'd accomplished things neither species could have managed alone. Not through forced genetic manipulation, but through choice, trust, and mutual respect. No, she said finally. We can't beat them by becoming them. Naira, detail your tactical plan. Dr. Morrison, what would it take to expand our shield harmonics to match Xylaxian frequencies? As the crew began coordinating their defense, Rena's console lit up. Captain. I'm picking up more ships dropping out of hyperspace. Multiple signatures, their Earth Defense Fleet. And Xylaxian peacekeepers. The distress call we sent reached both our homeworlds, Tara explained, her skin brightening with hope. It seems they chose to respond together. But even as reinforcements arrived, Saren's ships began powering weapons. The next few minutes would determine not just the fate of the Hyperion, but the future of human-Xylaxian relations. Would their newborn trust survive its first real test? Rhodes took her command chair, her voice steady as she addressed both human and Xylaxian crew members. Battle stations. Let's show them what real cooperation looks like. The space around the Hyperion erupted into chaos as Saren's hybrid ships opened fire. But the crew was ready. Lieutenant Park's fingers flew across the helm controls while Naira called out Xylaxian tactical patterns, their combined knowledge allowing the research vessel to dance between weapon bursts that would have torn apart a lesser ship. Earth Defense Fleet is engaging the human-design vessels, Cole reported from Tactical. Xylaxian peacekeepers are moving to flank the others. Hold position, Rhodes ordered. Let them come to us. She watched as Saren's ships broke formation, trying to adapt to the unexpected reinforcements. Just as Naira had predicted, their hybrid nature made them predictable to those who understood both tactical doctrines. In the medical bay, Dr. Morrison and his Xylaxian counterparts worked frantically. The hybrid ships are giving off massive genetic resonance signatures, he reported over the comm. They're not just crewed by hybrids, the ships themselves are partially organic. Can you use that? Rhodes asked, gripping her chair as another blast rocked the ship. Maybe. The same principles we used in the cure if we could broadcast it on a quantum level. Like a virus for their tech, Rena interrupted, her eyes lighting up. Captain, if we modify our communications array to carry Dr. Morrison's genetic signal, we could disable their ships without destroying them, Tara finished, her skin rippling with excitement. Save the crews even as we stop them. Rhodes nodded. Do it. Cole, Naira, keep them occupied. Park, get us within broadcast range of their flagship. Let's end this without any more bloodshed. The next few minutes were a symphony of cooperation. Human and Xylaxian crew members moved as one, each complementing the other's strengths. Morrison's team prepared the genetic broadcast while engineering crews from both species modified the comm array. Even the Earth Defense Fleet and Xylaxian peacekeepers coordinated their attacks, herding Saren's ships into position. They're catching on, Cole warned as the hybrid ships began a new attack pattern. Saren's no fool. The bridge rocked with a direct hit. Shields at 40%. Park called out. Morrison, we need that broadcast, Rhodes urged. Almost there. The genetic code is ready, but we need to get closer. Their flagship's shields are too strong at this range. Rhodes studied the tactical display, watching the dance of ships. Park, plot a course directly through their formation. Cole, divert all power to forward shields. Naira. I see it, the Xylaxian warrior replied, her skin shimmering with battle patterns. They'll expect us to break off. No sane captain would. Exactly. Rhodes allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the best tactical doctrine is to do what the enemy thinks impossible. All hands, brace for impact. The Hyperion surged forward, straight toward the heart of the enemy fleet. Saren's ships scattered, their hybrid crews unable to believe the suicidal charge. For a crucial moment, their coordination broke. Now. Morrison called out. Rena's fingers flew across her console, broadcasting the modified cure on all frequencies. The effect was immediate. The hybrid ship's organic components began to reject their mechanical parts, their weird biomechanical fusion unraveling. Direct hit on their flagship's power core, Cole reported. They're transforming. The organic components are breaking down. On the view screen, Saren's flagship writhed as its hybrid technology failed. The other ships followed suit, their crews preserved but their twisted modifications undone. Within minutes, the battle was over. We're being hailed, Rena announced. It's both Earth Command and the Xylaxian High Council. They're requesting to come aboard. Together. Hours later, the Hyperion's conference room hosted an historic meeting. Human and Xylaxian leaders sat side by side, formally recognizing the bonds their people had forged in crisis. Saren and the other extremists were in custody, their genetic modifications reversed by the same cure that had saved so many lives. The extremists were right about one thing, Rhodes said during the ceremony. Our species are stronger together. But not through force or genetic manipulation. Through choice. Through trust. Through recognizing that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. First speaker Tara's skin glowed with patterns of joy and pride. Today marks not just an end to conflict, but a beginning. Two peoples, choosing to face the future as one. Dr. Morrison stood with his medical team, both human and Xylaxian. Our cure did more than save lives. It proved that when we work together, respecting each other's nature rather than trying to change it, there's no limit to what we can achieve. As the Hyperion's crew watched their leaders sign the first human-Xylaxian cooperation treaty, Rena felt tears in her eyes. Her universal translator was barely needed now. After working so closely together, both species had begun learning each other's ways naturally. "You know what's funny?" Cole said quietly, standing beside her with Naira. "They wanted to force our species to become one. Instead, we found a way to stay true to ourselves while building something greater together." Naira's skin rippled with the pattern that Rena had learned meant deepest agreement. That is the true evolution. Not of our bodies, but of our hearts. As the ceremony concluded, Rhodes looked out at the stars visible through the conference room's viewport. Somewhere out there, other species were waiting to be discovered. Thanks to the crew of the Hyperion and their Xylaxian friends, humanity would meet them not with fear or a desire to change them, but with open arms and open minds. The bridge between worlds had been built. And it would only grow stronger from here.